Welcome back to another episode of the Dope Stroke Podcast Show. We're here for episode 40. We've got new format, same lineup. I'm here with Chris Trott, otherwise known as Trotty Golf, the People's Champion, and obviously an icon to millions, Chris Ryan, otherwise known as Bubbles. Today we've got an exciting episode. We're going to be talking all things elite level golf. I want to go through the Walker Cup. I want to talk about the Irish Open. And obviously we have to make sure that we cover some specifics, which is going to be insights from the bags of a few of the players that Trotty will be able to go through. And I'm really interested in the breakdown of Joachim Lagergren's swing, and who better to tell us that story than the man himself, Chris Ryan. But before we get there, how are you boys doing? All good this week? Ready to go?
Yes, I am good, mate. I am. Oh, we applauded the intro.
Did well there, didn't he? Considering he's been sat on his hands. He's been sat on his hands for the first 40 episodes. He did well there.
Yeah, I reckon you can keep doing that, Dazzler. You can do that next week as well.
Yeah,
mate, I'm good. I've had a good week. I was at a wedding yesterday, which is I haven't been to a good wedding in quite a few years. That was good. It was an outside wedding. The weather was good. And last week I had a good day. I was at a charity golf day with plenty of Trotty won't like this. Well, you both won't like this. Man United players.
Yeah, boo.
So that was all good fun. And tell you what, on the whole, all pretty damn good golfers.
Yeah, really? Are you just saying that? You're a closet Man United fan.
Well, I think natural sports person, going to probably be half decent at any sport that you turn your hand to. And again, I guess they play quite a bit. And I was actually chatting to one of the lads, and I guess like as a footballer, golf's a pretty good sport, right? Because it's not that dangerous. You're probably not going to get seriously injured. So, and yeah, I guess they play quite a bit, and it showed because they're all pretty good.
Who was the best player you saw?
I disagree with all that. I'm not a bad sportsman. I'm crap at golf, and golf's bad for my mental health.
Oh, we know that.
Who was the best? I'm not sure, because I did a beat the pro challenge where I had zero chance because it was all for charity, and if they paid more for charity, which they all did, then they got to choose the club that I hit on the par 3. So I'm playing a 140-yard par 3 with 5 woods and lob wedges, so I always got no chance. So you only get to see kind of one shot, but generally like pretty good swings from the majority. I think Michael Carrick was there. He was pretty good. He looked pretty solid, good setup. I think he hit like a 9-9 into the 140-yard par 3, middle of the green, so that was good.
Good stuff. What about you, Trotmeister? You've been doing much golf or not really?
Concerts. I saw he was at a concert.
I've been playing a bit. I've been playing enough golf for flipping 8 people. That's how high my score is these days. So that's perfect. And then I went to see Oasis, which was mega. To be fair,
yeah.
Where was that?
It was in LA, Rose Bowl. The bounce on the boy is different level. I've been walking around repeating all his one-liners.
I did see you put a few out on Instagram, didn't you? Just sort of copying them out.
I keep doing it. And Michelle, my missus, having head off. You can't keep you're a dick.
Happily married.
He did this one where he says, so he wants them all to do the Poznan, which is obviously, those that don't know, the Manchester City dance where the football team's so good, so they look away. And obviously you'll have seen it. Anyone who follows Oasis doing the British tours, they've been doing that. So basically he explains and he says so I was swimming this morning out in Santa Monica. He's not a scout, so he's a man. Can't do it as good. And he's like, yeah. He says, and a shark come up to me and says, I know that LA crowd. He goes, I know that LA crowd. They're all into the Grateful Dead. And in the sun all day, they all smoke a bit of wacky backy, so they lose it a little bit as to what's going on. But what I want yous all to do is turn around and do the Poznan. So then he doesn't go on any further to explain what it is, but they all know what's going on. And just before, he goes, so everyone, turn around, that's it. And then he stands there, he goes, all yous up there in the nosebleeds and the spaceships, talking about the ones in the suites and stuff. Turn around. So they don't really turn around. And then he goes, oh, and the shark's name was Mark. And then they started singing. So that's the best line in it. The shark's name was Mark, class. So I'm like, Mark the Shark, class. Oh, no, it's really good. And then obviously the news and the tabloids are hitting now that Noel Gallagher, there's loads of famous people there, like McCartney went there, and then Noel Gallagher, the girl that he obviously was famously in the Supersonic documentary, the girl that he had she sort of saved the band, they say, when he left and wrote Talk Tonight. It was about her. She was there. And then he had an incident, didn't he, Liam? Or they had an incident in Scotland, didn't they, about someone complaining about something. and said it was cutting or something. And so then he gets up and he basically says early on, "Have we got any sword swallowers in the house?" But he's talking, I think he's referring to like clowns who work for money, I think. I don't know. And then he says, "Okay, this one's for all the sword swallowers." So, of course, I've been walking around saying that all weekend as well. Love it. Love it. Anyway, new format. I don't think anyone out there knows, Mark, that this is a new format. Is it, Mark the Shark? That's what your name's going to be on this podcast.
Well, talking about a skill set, a repertoire of swordsmen, yeah, I think really from a slightly modified format, the plan is to go much deeper when we start talking about elite level golf. We're going to be talking, whether that's amateur golf, ladies golf, men's golf, whatever we see it, that is really, really insightful. We're going to go deep with obviously Trotty's
much
background.
Deeper, like a sword swallower.
Like a sword swallower, yeah.
Let's go then. Get on with it.
Let
dogs see rabbit. Let's go.
I guess.
Right, well, I want to.
Mark the Shark goes deep, doesn't he, when he's fishing for food?
He does. Mark the Shark in Santa Monica.
Yeah, actually, there was a bloke that unfortunately died last week, wasn't he, in Australia? Got eaten by a shark.
All right, well, let's keep
let's
it
not
pleasant.
Go down. Let's not go morbid.
Jesus,
let's not go
Mary
morbid.
Christ alive.
Right, Walker Cup, Cypress Point. Did you guys watch much of it? Because I definitely did, and blimey, that golf course is ridiculous.
There's got to be a lot of sharks up there.
I'm sure there must
water.
be. Yeah, well, they're called waves. Mark the Shark. Here we go. Now we know what we're in for the rest of the episode is Mark the bloody Shark.
Cypress Point is meant to be, they say, best course in the world, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Do you know I've actually never played it. I can't believe it. I've never played it.
It's hard to play, though. It's not easy to get a tip time.
I've been up there.
Isn't it a case of Pebble gets all the headlines, but actually Cypress is a better golf course to play?
So I've heard.
Now, I might be wrong on this, but I know somebody who's played there a few times, and he's basically said that on like a Friday morning, this could be bad for Cypress Point, what I'm about to say, but on Friday morning, it's like sort of open to the public on a first come, first serve for like a 60-minute window. So they get a queue of people then trying to play. You still have to play with a member, I think, but there's like a small window that you are actually allowed to play. But other than that, it is super exclusive, and most people that go there don't really see anybody else on the course for the whole day. It's a bit like playing.
I could see that. I mean, there's a fancy restaurant around here that does a happy hour, and you get a happy hour menu and get like a discount on something, and you can get burger and fries in this high end restaurant. So they queue for an hour around the block, and it's like burgers and fries with an oyster or something daft like that.
Oyster.
So you if California loves doing stuff like that, you do that at Brackenwood on the Wirral. Same amount of people turn up and put the ball in the trough. You know what I mean? It doesn't quite work the same. Bless it.
I mean, you've obviously got a few courses there. You've got Spyglass Hill, and I would say out of all the golf courses in the world, I know that course better than any other course because I played that on what would have been probably PGA Tour 1990 on my Amiga, and I used to play as Fuzzy Zeller, and I used to play Spyglass Hill, and it was phenomenal. Remember it?
So you played that on an Amiga or a Sega?
No, it was an Amiga, and I don't know what it was. It was an Amiga, and I can't remember what it was called. It would have been PGA Tour, or I don't know what the exact name was. But there was who else was the players? There was like Fuzzy Zeller. I can't remember the other ones, but yeah, I remember those days.
I can go back before that on those computer games when you had to put their own name in because they didn't have the link with the tour. So the names were like American name, like Gunther was one of the players. I'd always go Gunther.
It's like the original Formula Ones, right? There was always that character called Bruno. He was a classic one, Bruno.
And then the next edition, you could put like your own name in. So it would always say like Gunther is up. And then the kid who had the game put Fat is up. And then he gave the controller to my old man because he was a little bit overweight at the time. I was like, fair dues. Funny, I guess. You'd have Mark the Shark is up now, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would now. So talking about Walker Cup, right, just to go back to that for a moment, as final scores go, it was actually really, really tight up until the singles on yesterday. And when the singles came along, the tide turned completely. And the final result in the end was 9 to Great Britain and Ireland and 17 to the US. But in the Sunday singles of the 1, 2, 3, 4, how much is that? That's 10.
12.
No, it's 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 matches. Great Britain and Ireland won one and then tied the other and lost everything else. But I've got to say, when you look down those amateur world rankings, jeez, there's some good players in that US team. Um, and, you know, I think when you look at the quality of shots that you could see from these guys, you could some of them just look like tour players. Don't get me wrong, some of them still look like they're 15 and just got bum fluff on their chin, but some of them are out and out legit golfers. And it's going to be amazing to see their transformation over the next sort of 18 months or so as to how fast they rise up to the PJ Tour level and if they can sustain that. But some of those players and some of the shots I saw were off the scale.
You see, you often see, new names coming onto PJ Tour or DP World Tour that the general public have never heard of, and then they sort of get into a contention at a DP World Tour event and they might go ahead and win it. And people say to me, like, God, how on earth at like 26, 27 do you go ahead and have the balls to go and win like a tour event? And you kind of think, well, these kids have been doing it for 10 years, 15 years. They've been playing high level amateur stuff. So, and it just shows there that the amount of pressure they're playing under, huge, isn't it? And obviously we didn't get it done on the Sunday because that wasn't a great showing. But I mean, look, it begs the question. I'm looking at it going, okay, the US have won 5 straight now. Does this need to be more like the Ryder Cup? Does this need to be USA versus Europe? Because GB and I, pretty small, right, compared to the US. So it's no surprise that they're going to have probably a higher caliber of player ranked higher in the rankings. Obviously, we've got kind of a few that people might know. Luke Poulter played. But 5 straight wins, at what point do you go, we need to change something here?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that because there's definitely some players that are inside the sort of top 100 of the amateur world rankings that maybe would have otherwise qualified had they been European and it was a Europe versus the US. But still, the strength and depth from the British side or UK and Ireland side, it is deep. You'd still have 8 of those 10 players from the UK and Ireland. But I do think it's such a spectacle and such a great platform and preparation for these guys to turn pro to then get, invites into tour events or whatever categories that they go on to achieve in order to give them the best possible platform to succeed. But for me, the standout player it's world number 1, Jackson Coyven. I mean, he played fantastic all week, I thought. And then Mason Howell was the other one. And Mason Howell, I don't know if you saw this, but on the 17th, which is a par 5, in the Saturday foursomes, he holed out for eagle, 1 bounce straight in the hole. It was a phenomenal way to win the match. It's quite interesting that the dynamic of what happened there, because he holed the shot, but then the next shot was basic for the Great Britain and Ireland was ultimately conceded. So technically the hole was halved, even though he'd actually holed the shot. It was a funny little circumstance, which is why the score I think was 2-1 rather than 3-2 on that hole.
So he only needed a half to win the match, basically.
3-1. He only needed, because they were already dormy at that point. So he holed out. A half was good enough, and that's how the hole finished, which is why it was 2-1 rather than 3-1. So
that's quite a interesting shot,
detail. Well, that's what I'd have thought. I would have made the other guy hole out.
Yeah. We got a lot to unravel here already. So let's just go back a little bit. So out the gate, when you used to play PGA Tour 96 or whatever it was, the first hole at Spyglass, was there any elevation or were you just hitting a flat golf shot?
I mean, there would have been elevation visually. I mean, I don't think it was factored into the distances at that stage, but I remember certainly there was some elevation on the course, yeah.
Have you had a crack on one of those full swing sims yet and played Spyglass?
Not played Spyglass, no. I was a bit of the Sims.
So I'd be challenging anyone out there who's fortunate enough to go and play virtual golf in a simulator, dive on Spyglass. First hole's a par 5. The elevation's probably like 25 yards from top to bottom. So little pro tip here. The line that you take, I went pretty much as far left as I could and still went through the fairway. In reality, you can bang that thing left with a draw.
Those trees are tall, aren't they? Those trees are so huge. You're not going over those, are you?
Well, no, but you'd hug the left side, and then you for sure would be little draw on the left side. I need to go a bit more central. The thought was when I hit it, I needed to go down the right side. Anyone looking to play that golf course on a simulator, you don't need to do that.
Well, tomorrow night we've got Roman Langasque and Adrian Otaegui, who's going to come down to the new Full Swing Europe showroom. I'll make sure I load it up, and I'll say, hey, listen, Trotty's got a tip for you.
Film it. I want to see it.
I might do, yeah. A little tag for you, mate, help you follow account.
The next thing, 17th at Cyprus Point is par 4, not a par 5. He held his second shot. You
Sorry,
said
that's
it was
not.
par
Did I
5.
say it was a par five? Okay,
Yeah, he
apologies,
held his
my
second
mistake.
shot.
He hold his
The
second
next
shot.
thing, the next
Yeah.
thing is Cyprus Point, they say, is the best golf course on that peninsula. What I was blown away by that I didn't know is that 15's a par 3 and 16's a par 3. I didn't know that. I knew
Back to back.
16. Yeah, I knew 16 was a famous hole. It's like 205 it was playing. But I didn't know 15 was a really short par 3. The other thing that I'll hit on, they were doing well, to be fair, when it was team stuff. They only got battered in the singles, right?
Yeah,
That was it.
that
And I
was it.
think that that's where it comes out that you've got this team of players in America that just play that. Now, obviously, I'm saying all this because I was watching it. I assume you guys were asleep. It was on like 5
No, I watched
p.m.
it.
here.
It was good.
Bloody hell, so you must have been up early wherever they are. But the bottom line is that did you see all the fog coming in and the mist? The
Yeah.
sea level? Yeah, so the marine layer. So the last 2 games, Europe were GB and I was up. And they paused the game and all the captains were on the tee and waiting and stuff. And they waited for like 15, 20 minutes because it's the player's decision to keep playing or not. And then they played through the marine layer. So you could argue at that stage, and this was going to be one of my questions today. I've kind of concluded with my answer, which I haven't given you yet. But if you're the captains of those teams, the Walker Cup is over, you've won. Both European games are 1 up with 3 to play. Do you say, pick up the balls, we're done? Do you say, let's take a half, we're done? Or do you say, keep playing, lads?
Keep playing.
Keep playing.
It's got, but like these, I'm not exactly sure who's in those last matches, but this might be their only Walker Cup. It might be their only chance to kind of play under that amount of pressure. I appreciate that the game was done, but I think you've got to give it to the player and say, look, this is your moment. You've earned your right to be here. You've earned your right to play this match, and I'd put it back onto them, really.
Yeah.
And I think
the next thing, I think picking that golf course to play, it's extremely difficult for a Brit to come over and perform at the level that these American boys are performing at on that venue. There's just so much like going on that is, getting your mind distracted from what you're doing, that it's very hard to focus on the golf just because of how beautiful it is up there. I think that adds to it. The greens are going to be, I'm assuming they'll have Poana in them, which is a grass that the GB and I never play. That ice plant round the greens is so penal. It's basically a 1-shot, 2-shot hazard when you're in it. So there's a lot of things I think that the European lads don't know. Do you see that bunker shot that Poulter hit on 15? So he plugged it in the trap and then hit that trap shot, like this soft shot out of a plugged lie. I mean, Bobsy, no clue. Did you see this?
I didn't see it, no.
Short-sided, 7-yard bunker shot, plugged. Backstop behind, to be fair. Decelled on an open face out of a plugged lie. I'd say 50% plugged, and just got this thing to pop out the lip and like hardly run. Whenever I'm plugged, I'm full speed blasting it, and I hit it about 49 yards is the shortest one I can hit. I don't know how the hell he played that. Different gravy. And then, Dean Robertson, the captain of the GB&I team, was talking about, they didn't putt well and that. Frick, I mean, it's just tough. I think it's tough. And I think for GB&I to come over, it's tough. And I think to your point earlier, just to conclude what I wanted to say, it's been discussed to be going to a European team since we were kids. And it still hasn't done it. I think the problem is you've got so many people in the RNA that travel with that. And again, this will be maybe controversial, that travel with it, a part of it. It's still picked. I think it's still selectors who pick it, good old boys. You're not going to have the best GB&I team going. It should be points. It should be qualify in. It should be organised. There should be a fixed designated events that officially count for Walker Cup points. I know if you win the US Amateur, you automatically get in. I know next year they're playing again. They're flipping. It's changing back from odds to evens or whatever we are. We're odds now, going back to evens. So obviously it doesn't want to, I think, clash with any Ryder Cup stuff. So they're moving that. So I think, that, and the only negative I'd have, but it's not a negative, it's US culture, I guess, it's just how much the US boys were like hooping and hollering and come on and all that. And it's obviously a small crowd. So still having that little bit of GB&I in me, that's a little bit like, oh, that's a bit weird. But obviously I get it. Like if you're American, you give it the big whoop and hollow. That's fine. I get it. But I think the GB&I team getting battered, I felt bad for them. I thought they played better than that, to be fair.
They did. I think it was quite interesting to see Luke Poulter out there, and obviously his dad, Ian Poulter, being out there at the end of it, following each round, really. I actually thought that he held up really well, played good,
Really well.
played solid. Yeah, I think he was definitely, from a GB&I perspective, I thought he was a standout player, really. He played solid. And I liked, he obviously plays very differently to how his father played, but there's no question he would have been influenced a lot by his dad. But I mean, it's quite interesting to see, or what I'm curious to see, which we won't know the answer to for many years to come, is whether he ends up having a career that outperforms his father. Yeah, that'll be quite an interesting thing to see, because I don't believe Ian Poulter played the Walker Cup, did he?
So far, to put the golf here and to maybe help explain to some of the people that listen, even though now we've got to get 4K cameras for people who view this too, just so you understand.
Mark the Shark.
The Walker Cup is the best players in GB&I and the United States. Again, I'm not an aficionado on the qualification system. I know it used to be selectors. I have no idea now. I might be wrong on that. But the bottom line, yes, sorry, mate, yeah. And you're looking at the best amateurs. Ian Poulter was a 4 handicap when he turned pro and went on to be a PGA pro. A PGA qualification is a golf qualification that you can get for learning the business of golf that primarily specializes in learning the fundamentals of teaching. It doesn't let you mean you get qualified and you're the best teacher going, but you learn the base fundamental of the criteria that is required to teach golf and the background of a business of maybe running a golf shop, maybe being involved in the rules, things like that, various areas back when certainly we did the qualification that can get you set off in the world of golf. It's good for that, to be fair, if you want your first leg in. There's a US version, a European version. The bottom line is Poulter, to get into that course, you had to be a 4 handicap on the old handicap system. I've no idea what now that is. That was all he got to. And he was a guy who worked in a golf shop and then went on and played. So his son, to put this into context, is playing for Florida Gators, which is high standard of golf here in the United States at collegiate level. Arguably, you could say collegiate golf in America is effectively the youth Premier League. If you're playing in the young Premier League, then you're effectively playing in the college system. So, yeah, there's no comparison between the two. Now, what happens from here, who knows? But his son is on a pathway that is way higher trajectory than what Poulter got to. But you don't know, do you?
But Poulter was a much better player. I know he turned pro at 4, but he was a much better player than that, wasn't he? Even at that time.
You don't know, do you? Because we didn't know him when he was in a shop. I mean, obviously, he got his qualification and went out and scrambled his way on tour. He was never a good ball striker, he, never. But he just had that tenacity, and he had something about him. I mean, there was something went out the other day, and it was a tribute from Alathabal saying that there are many things about Poulter that reminds him of Seve. So Poulter had a way about him. He had a great personality. He had a flair, which was, let's be honest, is needed in pro sport. Do we have that right now in the top 10? No way. And Poulter was a great player.
I mean, you're quite right in saying what you've said about Luke is currently way ahead of where Poulter was at that age. He's doing things that Poulter never got a chance to do. But I tell you what, if Luke had a better career than Poulter, geez, that would be some impressive career. I know Poulter wasn't a prolific winner, but I mean, he played European Tour for many years, went over, held his own in the PGA Tour, won on the PGA Tour, an incredible Ryder Cup player. Like, it would not surprise me if Luke did not get to that level. So Luke's on a great trajectory, but doing more than what Poulter's done would be mind-blowing if he can get that level.
Okay, so I'm going to go the other way. You've got a professional athlete in Ian Poulter who is, don't get me wrong, maybe I have no right to say this, but in the top tier of the game, 100%. Yeah. If you remove the fancy clothes or the flair and you remove the Ryder Cup, then look at the record. It's okay. It's a Premier League team. But Poulter would have been aiming to win multiple majors, absolutely have the Ryder Cup stamp he's had. So Poulter will be looking at the attributes of his son. And I've never asked him this, but I'm been around him enough to almost certainly know. And I'm not saying Poulter will be disappointed with his career. Of course he won't. But he didn't have the start and the opportunity that Luke's had. Think about it. Luke's had access to Callaway, I think he played. Odyssey Potter, I know he plays. So access to that, access to Titleist, access to whoever he wants. He's got guidance from Ian Poulter. Let's face it, is like having guidance from a James Milner, although James Milner's won Champions League football, so maybe that's too great for where Poulter's at, to give across the board. But you get what I'm trying to say, mate. If your old man is Ian Poulter and you have the opportunity and you're really talented and you've now gone and got yourself on your own terms into a GB&I team, into the Florida Gators, the ceiling for that kid now, I mean, I'm saying like Majors is amazing. Let's go.
Well, I've got an interesting question then off the back of that in particular. This will be interesting to see what your views are on
I got an interesting one off the back of this, Mac.
So, Mac. So, Luke Poulter turns pro. Does he go the route of the PJ Tour?
Don't ask my question. Don't ask my question.
Does he sign a contract for the Majestics team in Live Golf?
That is absolutely the question. And I'll tell you the next one while we're on it, just to add to it. And Bubsy, you can have the answer. That Spanish kid that went to Live, the great player, the one who got done for having a gypsy's kiss. Yeah, gypsy's kiss at the Masters in the lake, in the creek. He is a baller. So, Bubsy, answer the question. Him and Luke Poulter. I think Luke Poulter has to go to Live, by the way. But my question, you can answer where you think they go. And my question is, do you think this is hindering their development? And then we come back to the same old adage, and we might as well cover Ryder Cup picks then, because we're doing the same thing over and over. Is freaking Liv still going in a year and a half anyway? Bubsy, this is all you. Handle that one. Right,
Liv is not going anywhere. God. It will still be here. I mean, like, to be honest, there's the Poulter thing. I don't know why, but I'd never made that connection. It's never entered my head as to where he would go. I just assumed he would do the kind of college, get his tour card, do PJ Tour. I think him as a player going through Walker Cup, if you took his dad away, I think he'd want to 100% go the PJ Tour route. Because he's obviously in America, he lives in America, he's at college in America. I think he'd want to do that. How much influence his dad has. And do you know what? Maybe if we could fast forward a few years and we get the answer as to what Luke Poulter wants to do, maybe that gives us an insight as to what Ian actually thinks about Liv and the future of Liv. Because if Luke goes PJ Tour, do we read into that his dad has had a word and gone, look, mate, if it was me in your situation, I wouldn't be going the Liv route. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't think Liv at its current state is great for young golfers who are developing, looking to kind of grow their career on tour, learn how to kind of win. I think PJ Tour is still a better sort of tour for that. But look, how much influence
I'm going to flip here. Let me ask you this one, though. Say my name is Mark the Shark, and I get onto the Live Tour, and I don't know how to win golf tournaments. All of a sudden, potentially in my team, say I get on with Johnny Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton and the other two lads, so I take one of the other two lads' spots. I'm playing practice rounds every single week with John Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton, and I'm getting to ask them 1,000 questions every week. So does that improve me as a player? Or do I have to get my ass handed to me on the Corn Ferry, which, by the way, is impossible to get through?
No, but surely if you were, Mark the Shark, just got your tour card, if you've got anything about you, and you will have because you're at that level, you're smart, you're on tour, and you realise that, look, I'm the new kid on the block here. I've got to learn from the best, and you would just go out of your way to speak to the OGs of the PJ Tour, and you just ask them questions. You ask if they can play practice rounds. You get that experience. Obviously, it's handed to you on Live, but I don't know. I kind of like the idea of. I like the idea of having to work a little bit for it and having to go outside your comfort zone and approach someone on the PJ Tour that's 20 years older than you, who's a multiple winner, and you've got to try and introduce yourself and ask to play a practice round and pick their brain. You look at people like Atega that Daryl works with. Good friends with Olatharbel. New Sevi. There's a lot of stories like that where new kids on the tour have to go and speak to the OG. I kind of like that about it. I think you should be made to work. I don't think you should just be given the opportunity. But having said that, having someone like a Rahm or a Bryson in your camp would be pretty special. And that's obviously got a value to it. But I don't know. I still think learning your craft on the PGA Tour is the best way to go at this stage.
But that comes back to the countryman. Like Ollie is Otagi's, wherever Otagi sits now with citizenship, who knows? Daryl knows, don't need to get to that. Bottom line is, Alathabal and Otagi's was a Spanish kid, so he's looking after him there. Poulter's got his old cheese looking after him. So, that's what I'm saying to you. The leg up is phenomenal to kick off into this.
But yeah, well, I will say just one thing on this Poulter thing. You mentioned the opportunities he's got as being, Poulter's son. He's obviously forged up those opportunities himself with the good golf he's played. But I look at Ian and I look at the way he played the game and the way he spoke and his performances in the Ryder Cup. That is something. It's like the X factor. You can't get that from full access to TaylorMade. You can't get that from access to club fitters like you. That's something that's deep inside Poulter that just turned him into this absolute monster when it needed to happen. And obviously he can then pass that on to Luke. But I think there's an X factor there that Poulter had that I don't know whether you can find that in the dirt, hitting balls in the rain.
Mate, do you know what? In all these podcasts we've been doing, I think that's it. I think we're done. We end. That's the first time I've agreed with you. I don't have to say anything. Wholeheartedly. I'm not needed here. I agree with you for the first time. In how many episodes now, Daryl? 40 odd? Done.
40,
Me and Bubsy just agreed.
Mark the Shark
done.
is more agreeable than Trotty.
I'm out. We're done. We're done. Well done.
Well, let's continue about. Let's continue the idea of talking about excellence. Did anybody see the playoff at all yesterday with at the Irish Open between Rory McIlroy and Joachim Lagergren?
Saw the dad and the kid. Saw the dad and the kid on the highlights.
Everyone's seen the dad and the kid. Yeah, that's nice. It's a nice touch. Jeez. But just to, I remember it was back when I used to work at TaylorMade for a while, and I was spending quite a bit of time with Joachim. And I was looking at this kid, and I thought, my God, this guy strikes the ball so well, so good. And I said to him, bearing in mind I was a bit more of a young buck, so maybe this is a little bit OTT, but I said to him, mate, you are one of the best ball strikers out here on the European Tour. If you don't make it to the top 50 in the world rankings one day, there's no hope for anybody else out here. Obviously, he's a good-looking lad. I'm pretty sure he's a lady thriller as well. I'm pretty sure all of his girlfriends are taller than him. So, he's obviously got something about him. But the way that he handled himself yesterday in that that playoff, obviously the last hole was super unfortunate. It was nearly an outstanding shot. It was pretty close to an outstanding shot, although a bit risky at that time when you're in the middle of the fairway and McIlroy's in the rough on the right. But I thought he came across like a guy, he was ready to beat McIlroy yesterday. So I was gutted for him, gutted that he didn't get it over the line. And I know that goes against what every European would be saying right now. Everyone's pleased that McIlroy won. But Lagergren, what a ball striker. He was up there yardage-wise off the driver with McIlroy. Like, he held his own there. I thought that was quite an impressive showing from Joachim. What did you guys think?
I was starting to think at some point, when are they going to not play the 18th as a playoff hole? Because it looked like they were just going to make fours all day and go into the night. I mean, you've got a par 5, which they can both reach. You've got a pin tucked back left that probably neither of them are going to go at. So they're both hitting driver into the fairway, approach shot to 25 feet, both two putts in for pars. I'm just thinking, go to a different hole because we're going to be here all night.
Well, it's amazing that. So they both, including the regulation play for the final round, they played that hole 5 times, and they hit the green in regulation all bar 1, which is obviously the hole that McIlroy ended up winning. So Joachim Lagergren, for those that didn't see it, he hit the green on the left-hand side of the pin, but as Bub said, the pin was back left. So he hit the green, it skipped on through into the rough a little bit, and then rolled into the water, which is what cost him the hole. But that was the only missed shot, not in regulation, by the way, in 2. It was a par 5. They'd gone 10 holes or 9 holes, let's call it, and both of them hit the green in 2 on a par 5. That's phenomenal standard. So, yeah, if you're trying to make that your playoff hole, surely you got to make the hole more accessible for that second shot so that you can see more of an opportunity for an eagle. But the eagle that McIlroy made in regulation play to get into the playoff was electric, and the roar of that crowd was something that you'd see at the PGA Tour. To be honest, you would rarely see that in Europe.
Just touching on that shot that he hit in the playoff, Lagergren, which is the 3rd hole playoff. As Daryl's described there, the pin was back left. He's hit probably maybe a 5-iron, and it's kind of landed on edge of the green, left of the flag, and kicked into the water. And then earlier in the day on the 16th, was it? The par 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's hit a fairway wood. I'm assuming it was a 3 wood, could have been a 5 wood, from some 270 to 80. Pin is cut back right. Right of the green is like it's not a stream, it's like a river almost that runs across the green. So the pin is cut tight to the water. And he's hit this 3 wood right of the flag, between the flag and the fringe, to some 4 or 5 feet, and rolled it in for eagle. And that was lauded as the best shot of the week. It was lauded as the best shot maybe of the year. Those 2 shots were both exactly the same. The one that's gone in the water on 18 and the one that's gone to 4 feet and 16. I can tell you now, I do not know what he was trying to do on the 16th, but he was not trying to hit it there. So, he's going in with a 3 wood, and he knows that pin's back right. At the time, he was tied for the lead, I believe. So I almost guarantee that he would have been thinking, right, if I can get 3 wood, I can get it 20 feet left, 2 putt, make my birdie. He's picked a target. I believe he's trying to hit a cut. And all these players, when they look at their targets, whether it's 10 feet left, 20 feet left, 30 feet left, they're choosing that target based on the club in their hand. If he's got 60 yards, he's aiming 4 paces left. If he's got 3 wood, he's aiming 20 paces left. Because he knows, I think left of the green was a bunker. He would rather be in the bunker than the water, because he knows he's got a chance of up and down. So he's picked a pretty smart target, and then he's hit it right of that target, I'd almost guarantee you. And he's left himself a 4-footer. And he's done the same on 18, but I don't think he's aimed enough right of the flag based on the club that he's got. And I do believe that is a decision he'll look back on and go, with that club, which is 5 iron, let's say he went 15 feet right, he might now think, do you know what? That wasn't necessarily a bad shot, because I know that when I've got 5 iron in my hand, there's a decent chance I'm going to hit it 15 yards left of my target. That's just the way golf is. So he should have picked a better target. Then you flip that to Rory in regulation. Rory is 2 shots back. Lagergren is in the house, done, 17 under. He's finished, signed. Rory has to make eagle. Has to make eagle. Pin is back left. Where does Rory hit it? Short right. That is the perfect shot, because even if he hits it left or long, he's always got a putt. He's not chased that flag, even though he has to make eagle. And to me, I just think what won it for Rory, a little bit of experience, course management, not being too risky. And I just wonder whether Lagergren was a little bit too aggressive with his line that he chose with that 5 iron, the third playoff hole, as opposed to it being a bad swing.
Well, I think now would actually be, I think that all valid points, super interesting. And I actually thought that shot that did go in the water was realistically for me a foot from being an excellent outcome, not necessarily an excellent shot, but an excellent outcome. Had that been a foot further right, I don't think he would have rolled off the green. I reckon the spin would have kept him up, and he would have been all right for a pretty short, what would be an eagle putt for most likely the win. Obviously, that never happened. McIlroy went on to win. So overall, I think, it's another win for McIlroy. Second time he's won the Irish Open. However, I really want to focus in on Lagergren. I think now, Bubs, would be a really good opportunity to give a bit more of a breakdown as to some of the things that you see that's great and some of the things that's maybe not so great in Lagergren's swing. Just for those that are listening, when you see Lagergren in the flesh, he's tall, he's lean, he's probably got like a 24-inch waist. Great for me, a good-looking swing, but I think let's go to Bubs and see what he thinks about.
I think we got to slow down.
Breakdown of that.
I don't think that this. I'm sorry to dive in on you, but I don't think that.
Mark the shot can't help himself, can he?
I haven't said anything. I've listened to you, and you're like, "Oh, this is super interesting." You're missing the main point. I don't think it is super interesting. And then you hit on Lagergren. It says he's 5'9". Mm-hmm. So how tall's Lagergren? Let's cover that first.
Well, I say he's taller than 5'9". I said he was closer to maybe 5'11".
So
maybe he is
DP,
5'9".
On their world bio, they've gone as 5'1". The next thing, which we can't just pass over. I was going to just sit tight here and wait for my turn, but you weren't giving it to me, so I'll wait.
You got to go in through 9 minutes, haven't you?
Yeah, but I'm going to leave you with this bombshell.
Hurry up.
You go through the top 20 of that leaderboard. If Rory doesn't win that event, it's a flop. This is what a podcast is. You've got to start talking some facts. If Rory doesn't win that event, it's a flop. And there are 3 players inside the top 20 that had the ability to had the mindset to take him on. You could arguably put Tom McKibben as the fourth, who obviously, am I right in thinking he's gone to live?
Yeah.
So he's already walked off and said, I'm done. So if I'm sponsoring the Irish Open and I look at what the European Tour used to be and the Irish Open used to be, and I look at what it is now, then I am so thankful for that viral moment with the father and the son. And I'm so thankful for the 42-foot putt on the last. And I'm so thankful for that highlight reel, because without that, that tournament's a flop. Controversial or factual, I don't really know. And I could name you the 3 players that are worth talking about in that top 20 if you wanted. And again, I may be being ultra harsh, because no disrespect to anyone on that leaderboard, or maybe there is. They're all brilliant. Of course they are. They've achieved the top of European golf to play in this event. But the truth is, you're taking on, and he is one of the greatest players of all time. So if I'm sponsoring that tournament, thank the holy Lord that I had that moment, because otherwise it's a wash.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can see that just by the amount of world ranking points that he actually won. So, when you compare that to other wins that he would have this season, like he won the AT&T Pebble Beach, that was 71 points he earned for that. But for winning yesterday, it was 34 points, which highlights the weakness in the field, which is your point.
Just shocking.
It is. I mean, there's the world rankings is a whole other conversation as to how it is, but it does demonstrate the weakness in the actual field. But I still think that if you're in a winning position like Lagergren, you're at that moment, you are trying to win the tournament and you believe that you can win the tournament. And that would apply to anybody playing on the Corn Ferry Tour, the Asia, wherever you might be. So you are right. He hasn't won it. And Rory McIlroy is one of the greatest golfers, let's say, of all time. So yeah, he probably should win it. And there is a handful of other guys in that field that should win it. You could argue, should McIlroy have won it by 5 or 6 shots if he's the greatest of all time?
Well, the next thing I'm going to say to you, though, I mean, Lagergren's obviously had the week of his life.
Yeah, that's
the next
what I'm
thing
trying
I'm
to
going to say.
Yeah.
It says here, playoff hole 13. Is that how many playoff holes did they play?
No, 3.
No.
So this says
3.
playoff 13. So they must have had 13 strokes versus 12.
And they played 4 times.
Whatever. The point is here, mate. If you take first at 17 under, you could finish 15th at 7. So you're 10 strokes back. That's a lot.
But you're saying that tournament was a flop without Rory winning it, and I can't argue with you, but it's a bit like opening up a shop in the Sahara Desert and then moaning because you've got no staff. You're on the DP World Tour; it's in decline. Like, it's whether you've got a good tournament or not is down to luck. You go PGA Tour, you can sort of create a good event because you can pull the players in if you've got the right prize money. You can't do that on the DP World Tour. So, like, they can moan all they want, but they've got to accept that they're on the DP World Tour, and that's just the way it is. Like, they got a few names, like Brooks played, although we need to talk about him another time because he's horrendous at the moment. But look, there's a few things going against it. Time of year, the Ryder Cup picks have just happened, so there's no jeopardy there for any players trying to get points. I'd like to see it moved, I think, where it used to be. I'd like to see it played on the Links golf course around the Scottish, around the Open, and do like a little kind of 3-week kind of stint there. I think it'd get a few more eyeballs there, probably get a slightly stronger field. But I agree, it was without Rory winning, it's a pretty dull event, really.
And I think that's the whole purpose of the podcast. We've got to get on some facts here, and it's like, it might be controversial, I guess, but yeah, it's a real problem that the DP world has. And it's just ironic that we've even had the conversation on this podcast. Poulter's son, credit to that family, is playing Walker Cup golf. If you play Walker Cup, and you just go, I went back through a lot of the names on both teams. They go on and have tour careers. Certainly the GB&I guys do. So now, are we really looking at live for Poulter? We probably could well be. And they're independent contractors, these guys.
Yeah, well, they technically should be. Sometimes you get contracted to the European Tour. That's one of the key things, right? You get contracted to the European or the PGA Tour when you earn your way onto the tour, but you're basically contracted for 52 weeks on your pretty much your name, image, likeness to a degree. So that's why that if you do anything outside of that tour, you usually have to pay some sort of fee back to the tour. which is what the big issue is with a lot of the live players, because the live golfers are only contracted for the tournament week that they play. So if that's 14 tournaments, it's 14 weeks. The rest of the year they can play and do whatever they want. That's a whole other podcast when eventually, or if there's ever a deal, which there may well not be a deal between all the tours. But that's a fundamental important part as to why many PGA Tour players joined live. Not just the dough. I'm pretty sure the dough is a very attractive carrot, mind you. But I do want to go back to Lagergren here for a moment, because I want to get the swing breakdown from Bubs as part of our new format.
Well, I think before you do that, I got to get the breakdown of my Mark the Shark farm. So I got to love you and leave you, boys. I shall see you in the next episode. You can break down this swing all you want, but bottom line is, bless him, he lost out to an eagle, to one of the best players of all time. So maybe you should break down Rory's swing. That might be better.
Well,
just saying. You guys do you. Anyone else get?
Well, we'd end up doing Rory every week, wouldn't we? So we got to change it up a little bit. And I thought that Lagergren held his own, so that's the one we're going to break down. See you later, Trotmeister or Matt.
Lagergren's swing then. I think it's an interesting one because clearly it works. He won back in 2018. He actually won at a golf course I've been to in Sicily, Figura. So he's been around for a while now, and he has won, and obviously very close to getting it done there. So it obviously stands up under pressure. But if you look at certainly the kind of online coaching over the last 5-10 years, it kind of goes against a lot of what people are coaching now. Really? There's definitely been a trend towards the kind of DJ, Morikawa, Hovland type swings where the lead wrist gets very arched, club face gets a little strong, and then they kind of generally rotate out the way pretty well and hit these kind of little soft fades. He's got kind of the opposite movement. So if you look at his golf swing, when he gets to the top, his right arms, his trail arm is quite flexed, quite narrow. His left wrist is pretty extended or cupped, and certainly with like driver in hand, it's a pretty long golf swing. And all those things go together because the more that you extend your lead wrist or cup it, basically the more kind of wrist set you're allowed to have, the more range of motion you've got. So generally, if you get someone like let's say Shane Lowry, a Lagergren, who get it a little bit longer in their golf swing, they'll often get it a little across the line and they'll often get the left wrist a little cupped. Now, I always think when you look at golf swings, you've got something you can see, which is the golf swing. That's the technical side of it. And then you've got the thing that you can't see, which is the golfer's inbuilt skill, talent, whatever it may be. Clearly, he's got bundles of talent. But if you put the average golfer in that position, they're going to really struggle because narrow is not a good thing to have at the top. You've got to get rid of that somehow. Left wrist cupped is generally not something that a lot of golfers deal with particularly well. So it's not one of these golf swings that you look at and think, God, I'm going to get everybody into that position at the top because it's textbook. There's a lot of things he does really well. Like the shape of it is phenomenal. It's only the fact that he gets a little narrow with that right arm, wrist gets a little cupped, club gets a little long, a little across the line. But then when you have got these golfers who are incredibly talented, they're just very, very good at getting the club back to a functional impact to make the ball do what it needs to do. And he transitions very, very well. He shallows it really nicely. And that right arm, which was really a little bit too bent at the top for a neutral golf swing, if you like, he starts to extend that really nicely into the downswing and he gets a really good impact position. It's just interesting that if you give that top of the golf swing position to 99% of golfers who play recreationally, they're going to start their downswing with the shaft very steep and the face very open. They're going to struggle from there. Obviously, he doesn't do that. But it's just interesting because obviously there's been a big trend towards these kind of bowed wrist, shut face, and he's not there.
So how does he, just making that comparison between himself and Rory, like they were hitting the ball off with a driver, very similar distances. How does he generate his power versus McIlroy?
Yeah, I was looking at ball speeds, actually. Rory was a little up on ball speed, but he had some sort of high 170s, pushing 180, Lagergren, so he's obviously got enough. And I was looking at earlier, he played the US Open a few years back, and he was averaging well over 305 yards, so he's pretty long. He's got a little bit of Jake Knapp to his golf swing. People who watch a lot of PGA Tour golf will know Jake Knapp, quite long, loose golf swing. There's a little bit of that in there. It's got great rhythm, great tempo. But if you look at what he does through impact, a lot of body rotation, huge amounts of body rotation. I mean, we'd have no chance, mate, at our age getting in those positions.
The arthritis gets in the way.
Yeah, so he's got really good body rotation. Arms extend really nicely post impact. For him, a lot of it is sequencing. A lot of it is the body rotation. But having said that, his golf swing is a little longer than maybe some others. Look, the further the golf club travels, the more chance he's got to create speed. So that is one of his sort of aspects that does help him hit it a long way. And certainly I'm not looking at his golf swing saying I would change it. I'm just observing where it is. The fact that he does get that wrist a little bit extended gives him a little bit more range of motion in the wrists. We know that the wrists are a huge source of power. So the fact that the club travels a little bit longer in the backswing gives it more time to create speed on the way down. He's got a little bit more energy stored up in his wrists. His body rotates really well into the delivery position. And then he's got that kind of more potential energy to then let go into the golf club. So, I mean, it's great golf swing. You watch it at full speed, the rhythm and the timing and the flow and the sync of it is phenomenal. And it's really, really good. And certainly, at that level, that's his style. You'd never change that. You might make some tweaks if he wasn't playing well, but you'd never, ever try and move him towards this opposite movement that we see so often. You've got to work within a player style.
Fascinating stuff. And I think it's pretty safe to say that segment was brought to you by the Chris Ryan Golf app, which you can download online.
Yes. And
all of your favorite places, Android and Apple.
One of the upcoming podcasts, I need to speak about another app that I've just sort of got involved with, which we'll save for another podcast because that is an absolute game changer.
Yeah, and I know which app you're talking about, and I have to say it is something to behold. So we'll give that the big reveal in one of these upcoming episodes because it's fantastic, I have to say.
I know we're getting pretty close to the end of this podcast, but just give us a quick 2 minutes on what you've done today because I know you've been somewhere very nice today, haven't you?
Yes, I just nipped over to Wentworth. Very fortunately, I live relatively close to Wentworth. So I nipped in. To be quite honest with you, I nipped in just to get my car parking pass. But while I was there, said hello to a few people, saw Adrian Ategi and a few others. He was playing golf this afternoon, or a practice round this afternoon with, who was he with? Pablo Larrazabal, Jorge Campillo, and also John Rahm. So, I think that should be a pretty good troop for this afternoon. And the golf course is looking great. The green is in the practice putting green. I'm not sure if I've ever seen it quite like that before. It was very, very smooth almost. It almost didn't quite look like it had any grains of grass. It was just like flat and smooth and just looked really nice. The place, as usual, looks amazing. BMW do a fantastic job around there. I think it'll be quite an interesting week. It did feel a little bit soft underfoot, I will say that. So I'll have to check out what the weather reports look like, but it was quite humid there, quite warm. And obviously some of the big stars are already there. So like I said, John Rahm was there. I saw him today, saw Tommy Fleetwood, your boy Aaron Rai. I saw him down on the far left-hand side of the range too. Brooks Koepka was there. Harrington was there. So there's quite a few big names there today. Interestingly, this tournament, slightly unusual to a lot of the other events. There's no tickets available for the Monday. So it's Tuesday onwards where tickets are normally available. So when I got there today, it felt not quite like a ghost town because there were loads of players and caddies and, people that work along the tour, like myself, for example, and officials and people like that. But it did feel unusual for a flagship event, but there's no question from tomorrow it'll start to ramp up. Wednesday, Celebrity Pro-Am. I'm sure we'll get some big names over for that. But I'm expecting a really good tournament. This is the flagship event of the European Tour. If I'm honest with you, there's only about 4 events on the European Tour that are actually unbelievable, and this is one of them. And it's, I can get to sleep in my own bed all week, so it's perfect.
I mean, if anyone, I know this podcast goes out around the world, but if anyone is England or UK, it's such a good event to go to. I mean, I've been to a number of different days. Depends what you want, but the Wednesday Pro-Am, it's such a good day, isn't it? Because they do 2 shotguns, like an 8 or an 8:30 shotgun, then an afternoon shotgun. There's a pro, obviously with every group, and then a load of celebrities. It's a little bit more chilled, but I mean, it is just such a good event. As you said, PJ and BMW do a phenomenal job. The course is always immaculate, and it's just if ever you get a chance to go, it's definitely one worth ticking off.
Yeah, especially if the weather's great. Like I'll probably go down on Sunday with the kids, and they'll probably say hello to Taggy, and if we can catch up with Langask as well, and some of the other players too. Like my kids have got no idea who they are. They call Adrian the Pirate, so they say, "Is the Pirate going to be playing this week?" Like, yeah, the Pirate's playing this week. It's quite good to get my kids exposed to that a little bit. I actually took my son down the showroom here over the weekend. We played zombie dodgeball and a little bit of football as well, or soccer to our American listeners. And it's just so good. So he's starting to get into it now, and he's starting to get competitive and all that, which I love. I'm trying to get my daughter's competitive nature up because she's actually got quite a lot of natural ability with most sports, but she just doesn't really give a monkeys about it, So it's like, well, let's see how that all goes.
I just want to touch on something really quick before we wrap up. So, as you mentioned, we're trying to do a little bit of a different format here on the podcast. We're going to dive into a lot more of Trotty's expertise, which is obviously golf clubs and that kind of stuff.
Mark the Shark.
We're going to dive into, Mark the Shark. We're going to dive into a lot more of your expertise, which is business, tour, all that kind of stuff. And then obviously mine is a little bit of coaching. So we've had a bit of a talk about what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. And we've decided that we're going to get some questions specific to our niche. Mm-hmm. And I can see in the first episode that we've done in this new format, the question for Trotty and Lloyd has put this in the chat, it's about Lloyd's golf clubs. This is
Is it really?
Look, this is the question for Trotty. I've got the P790s with these grips. They feel like a sledgehammer, would replacing the grips. He's asking about his own golf club. Lloyd is just using this podcast to answer his own questions. This is not how I thought he was going to go.
No, but we all know Lloyd. I mean, he's the ultimate golf pervert, right? Anything to make his game better, he's going to go for it. You got to take your hat off.
I'm just not sure how Trotty answering a question about Lloyd's golf clubs is really going to work to the masses of people who are listening.
Well, he's going to try and go, oh, hang on, boys, it's related to a video that Trotty did on his latest YouTube video, which it does apparently. So from what is that, TS-ZT2SW. That's apparently somebody off Instagram, is it? Which is probably
is that not Lloyd that's asking it?
Unless that's his own golf pervert account, but if it's not, then welcome to the show.
Maybe it's from Lloyd to disservice there. Maybe that isn't from Lloyd. Maybe that is an actual genuine question.
No, well, let's figure this out.
Service there. We'll see.
Well, I'll give it a go to answer this on Trotty's behalf best as I can with my own fitting background, but I'm sure I will not do it any justice. So the question here says...
Well, let me give you the full question then, because I skimmed through it before. So this person, who might not actually be Lloyd, it might actually be a genuine question who I thought was Lloyd. It says, I got the P790s from TaylorMade with the Golf Pride MCC +4 standard grips, playing at D0 swing weights, and they feel like sledgehammers. Would replacing the grips with a taper grip solve the issue, or is there more behind this?
It looks like there's a 6.4 there as well, so I'm assuming that's probably his handicap. Now, Trotty will answer this question far better than me, but the MCC, it's a multi-compound grip, but the +4, it just means that, like it says in the rest of the question, it's not really a taper. So it's almost like having extra wraps of tape under your right hand. So you'd normally see golfers that quite like these particular grips are more likely to use these on their wedges to stop their hands from being too active during the impact location around the greens. Not always, and there's many variables to that. But it is, I would say, a slightly heavier grip, which is possibly why his swing weight is coming out at D0. D0 would be considered quite a light swing weight. So I'm surprised that it would feel like a sledgehammer. That wouldn't really resonate with me. I'm more likely to think to myself, if you were going to change the grips, you're more likely to move to a lighter grip, which would actually make the heads feel heavier. But by doing so, the heavier the swing weight, it also makes the shaft become a lot more active. So now you'll start to feel the head more. You'll feel more movement throughout the golf club. So there's a lot to be said for that. Now, do you change the grip to do that, or do you add more weight to the head to do that? I think this is something that you'd have to go out and test to really validate which will work better for you. In my case, I'd actually ask you a question. What grip did you have before this grip, and what made you change to this particular grip? Because that would make a difference behind the reasoning as to what you should do next. But right now at a D0 swing weight, I would say that's considered to be quite light If you play off 6.4, I'm assuming that you're either an S flex or an S flex, S or X, whichever. You might not be, but I'm making an assumption. So with that in mind, it would tell me that the shaft is not active enough. So heavier swing weight would probably be the way to go. But hey, look, we can ask the same question to Trotty next week and see what his response would be. But I'd probably have a few other questions that I'd want to understand before I could give you a more valid answer. I think I kind of did that all right, to be fair, Bubs.
Yeah, that was good. So just on that point, I mean, I remember from working. I remember from being a junior playing golf and obviously working at the Belfry for a number of years and doing some club repairs. People would often come in, for new grips. They've got, let's say, Golf Pride Tour Velvets and they were worn down and they'd say, I want some new grips of mine. And you'd sort of bring out the selection of grips that you had and they would sort of look at one and pick it up in their hand. And that grip wouldn't be on a golf club. It would just be a loose grip. And they would just basically look at what felt right. Is that a little risky? Because is that going to change the golf club significantly if that grip is heavier, lighter?
Yep.
Is that going to change the way that they feel and play?
Absolutely. Makes a huge difference. Way more than you can possibly think. So we used to get a lot of people that would go from, say, like a Golf Pride grip, and then all of a sudden they move to this full cord with 3 extra layers of tape. It totally changes the balance of the golf club, and the club just doesn't feel the same anymore. So a big part, you would have heard people say the shaft is the engine of the golf club, right? I don't believe that. I think that's absolute crap. But what it is the seat positioning in your car. That's what it is. So the engine of the golf club is the club head, because if it was the shaft, then it means that you could use a driver in a greenside bunker and be very effective. And that's just not the case. It's always about the head initially, but the shaft has such a huge effect on feel. So getting the club to be balanced appropriately and correctly is the best way to get the most out of the clubs. So if you start to fiddle around with the grips and the grips are moving in weight by 10, 20 grams, which they can sometimes do, you're completely changing the swing weight of the clubs. You're completely changing how the shaft will react during the impact area. It's a completely different golf club. So, and we used to have, and Trotty will have 1,000 times more stories than I will, but I'm rewinding the clock back to, say, KJ Choi time. We used to weigh his grips on the truck. You'd have to stand there with a scale and he's got his head over your shoulder, making sure that you're not lying to him. And you're weighing the grips before you put them onto the actual clubs. And I mean, the tolerance of the grips are so good. They're all pretty much the same, more or less. You get the odd one maybe, but the odd one being like a couple of grams out, not 10 grams out. So it does make a big difference. And what you'll notice with tour players, it's a bit like what they do with the ball. They don't really change the golf ball very frequently, in the same way that they don't really change their grips very frequently. But the other components, they're more likely to change because ultimately they're trying to reach a swing weight. They're trying to reach a balance point. But the grip and the ball are like constants for them, because the grip is the one thing they touch day in, day out. They don't touch the shaft. They don't touch the head. And the ball has a direct correlation to what you see as your eye. So, it is different, but grips is way, even if you go from, say, a multi-compound grip to, say, a full cord, the stiffness of the grip itself, it has less sort of twist in the grip. So it effectively means, not quite like this, but it effectively means that the shaft plays stiffer anyway, because there's no flex in the grip compared to a much softer Golf Pride grip. So yeah, I think the grip can be, it's something during the fitting process that should always be considered. But if you start fanning around and changing your grips during that time, you need to be damn sure that it's going to affect positively the balance of the clubs that you're looking to get.
That was my suspicion, but I remember being a kid and doing exactly that, just going to the shop and just looking at the grips and choosing one based on, well, back then it was the colour of it. When the new, the Golf Pride ones came out with the different colours, you choose it based on colour and a little bit of a feel in your hand. But yeah, I guess there's a few things out that people don't maybe realise just how impactful it is on the performance and the feel of a golf club, really. I would say, going back to what you just said, I've used the same sort of shaft grip, everything for a long time for exactly that reason. The more constants you can have, I guess the easier it's going to be to get golf clubs that feel and play the same every time you kind of change or upgrade.
Yeah, that's right. You want everything to feel as consistent as you possibly can. So if you're changing every part of the club all the time, I mean, how are you ever going to get any element of consistency? There's a reason why the best players in the world, yes, they might test 20 drivers before they find the right exact driver. But I tell you what, they've all got pretty much the exact swing weights, the exact grips. Everything is balanced to a fraction of a percent. And that's the best players in the world. So why would amateurs be any different to looking at too many variables? So anyway, hopefully either Lloyd or at TS-ZT2SW I've answered that question relatively well, but again, we can throw that question at Trotty and see what he would say. I'm pretty sure he'd have a much better answer than I would, and we'll go from there. But to round up our episode with our slightly modified format, we have a new feature, and we do enjoy beer on the podcast, I will grant you that, and a Cinzano, but we do also appreciate a good golf shot. So we want to talk about the dope stroke of the week. Dope stroke could be a moment, could be a golf shot that really stood out for this particular week. I want to know what Bub's is, but I also want to know what yours as the public would go to. So feel free to put a comment in this post, wherever that post may show up online, and let us know exactly what you thought was something iconic from last week. I'm pretty sure there'll be a better way of saying what I just said, but I'd like to know, Bubs, what was your dope stroke of the week last week?
Well, I'm not going to go with Lagergren's approach to 16. I think for the average golfer watching that video DP World Tour posted, it looks phenomenal. He's got 3-wood in hand, water hugging the green, pin cut back right. He hits it to 4 feet, he makes eagle. But I don't think that's the shot he was trying to hit. I think it was incredibly well thought out. I think he's picked an incredibly good target. I think his whole process was phenomenal. And he knew that he could miss it a little left and a little right, and he wasn't going to be in the water. So I think there was so much good about that shot. But I think there was a lot of luck for it to end up where it did. So for me, I am going to go with Rory's putt on 18 in regulation. I think that the pressure of him playing it in front of his home fans, everybody else pretty much was in the clubhouse. He knew he had to make that putt to get into the playoff. And I think it was 27 feet or just over, and it was right in the middle, perfect pace, and that obviously got him into the playoff, for which he could then go on to win. So I'm going to go with Rory's putt on 18.
Okay, I think that's a great shout, and given the circumstance, no question that is 100% a great shout for the week. For me personally, having watched quite a bit of the Walker Cup, I've got to say, that hole out from Mason Howell, the current US Open champion, on the 17th, holing out on for eagle on 17 to win the match, that is definitely my dope stroke of the week. And just so you know, I was having a Brewdog IPA Hazy Jane at the time that putt rolled in, or shot rolled in, as the case may be.
Well, I hope you didn't celebrate that, because that was the US, yeah?
I didn't celebrate it. No, I was more like in shock that it went in. And it was a great shot, one bounce straight in the hole. So yeah, but that definitely went down as one of the best shots of the week for me. So definitely qualifies as dope stroke of the week on my behalf. For Trotty, I don't know. I'm just going to have something to do with Oasis or Mark the Shark. So we'll just, whatever on his behalf. We all know what he's like. Loves a chat, loves the banter, loves to override everything and everyone. So that we'll call Trotty the dope stroke of the week, perhaps. But other than that, I think that wraps up another episode of the Dope Stroke podcast. So, guys, looking forward to talking next week. Obviously, next week we'll probably be talking about the BMW Championship at Wentworth. So, other than that, thank you very much for listening, and let's talk next week.